Hi everyone, it's Melissa. I go by Stitching Liz here on YouTube and also over on Instagram, and it would mean so much to me if you would follow me in both places. Thanks so much for joining me, and welcome back if you've been here before. Welcome if you're new. Today we're doing a kit up with me and chat with me, and we're going to be kitting up my first summer start of this summer. And it's going to be from this magazine, The World of Cross Stitching. This is the April 2024 edition. And this is what we're going to be kitting up. So this is by Innocent Bones. It's actually in a book that she produced recently. To preview the book, they put in two designs, this tiny little butterfly and this bigger hoop butterfly. This is called Moth Hoop, at least in the magazine. And we're gonna kit up from my stash. I'm gonna use my DMC and just color match to put this together and then pick out some fabric for it. They're just using white here. I'm not sure if I will use a color. I'm gonna have to do a floss toss to see. So this is, again, by Innocent Bones. And so this is gonna go in this project bag. I happen to have one with butterflies, so I definitely wanted to use it. This project bag designer does no longer sell project bags. It was someone on YouTube that sold them. They made really nice ones, and this one is the one I'm gonna use for this project. So, this is my DMC box, and inside I keep my DMC all in bags by color. So that's how I do my kitting up, is I go to the color bag and then I just try and color match what I need for the chart. So I thought that while I was doing that, I would tell you a little bit about how I got started stitching. I had started this YouTube channel way back about 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now. And I took a very long break from it. And just came back last March. So I did tell you at that point how I got started stitching, but I think I have a lot of new viewers since then. And so the way that I got started stitching was in 2015, around the time of my birthday, which is in February. I had this urge to do sewing. I don't know why, I don't know where it came from, but I wanted to sew something. So I decided to go to Michael's to see what kind of fabric they had and thread. Well, if you've ever been to Michael's, you know that they don't really have a lot of fabric at Michael's. But in the aisle I was looking in, they had cross stitch. And at that time, they had much more cross stitch than they have now in that aisle. And I was like, this sounds like sewing. I could give this a try. I was a little intrigued by it. So I started by getting a stamped kit. It was a dimension stamped kit. And it was like a wreath of hearts. And I tried doing that, and I really enjoyed it. I wound up finishing it into a round pillow. Not very well, but definitely into a round pillow. And I gave that to my mom. So the first thing I ever made, I gave to my mom. And so I did another stamped kit after that. I thought stamped kits would be like my best way to go. So, I did the stamped kits, but then I decided I wanted to try counted cross stitch and wanted to see what that was like. And so I picked out a child's kit. It was a cupcake. It was a learn how to cross stitch craft kit, again by Dimensions. And I did it. I figured it out. I did it. I really enjoyed it. At that point, I didn't really know much about cross stitching. And so I needed to learn how to do a French knot. And I looked up on YouTube how to do it, and that's how I found Flosstube. And I started watching Flosstube almost right away when I started stitching. So I've been watching Flosstube since 2015. So I've seen a lot of people come and go. I think that I thought kits were the way that I was going to stitch, but I really learned from Flosstube about individual charts and kitting them up. So I started looking for designs, and I looked on Etsy a lot. A lot of my first designs were from Etsy. And so I did a lot of PDF charts that I printed out and did from the PDF. So my favorite designer when I first started stitching was Tiny Modernist. She had a lot of charts at the time that were not as complicated as her charts are now. Her charts now are, I don't know, they're so involved. They're beautiful, but they're so involved and complicated. But at the time, her charts were much more manageable, and I loved them. And so I've done several Tiny Modernist designs from her old Etsy shop. She now has her own website that you can find almost all of them on. My favorite finish that I've ever done was a Tiny Modernist that I did called The Last Unicorn. I'll insert a picture of it here. And so I think I started to just love doing individual charts. I found a book, the Reader's Digest book of cross stitch, and actually my first chart that I ever kitted up exclusively on my own was a chart from that book, and it was me going to Michael's, looking for a tube of Charles Craft fabric and the DMC that it was called for. At the time, I thought you had to do all called for threads. I didn't understand that you could do what I'm doing now, which is just matching the colors. and using whatever floss you have. So I think these are the colors I'm going to go with. So I'm going to use this pink, which is 963 for the pinks. I'm going to use 165 for this green here, 581 for the leaves. I have 310 for the black in the butterfly and the black stems in the leaves. I have 3041 for this mauve purpley color in the top of the butterfly, and 3790 for the bottom brown color in the butterfly. So I think those are the colors I'm going to use. So we'll put away the flosses and we'll start looking at fabrics. So that's kind of my stitching journey. I used to think I liked to stitch big projects. I didn't know that I much prefer smaller projects. And so I have really changed what I shop for and what I stitch since I started. I did, it's so funny, I did Stitch Mania in 2016, I think, and I started 15 projects, and so most of those projects sat for years. I wound up finally decluttering some of them because I knew I would never do them, and I'm glad I did because they were just weighing on me, and they were no longer my style, and I didn't like them anymore, and I didn't want to stitch them, so I'm kind of glad that I moved on from them. But I kind of have this goal now of trying to finish old whips and get down to doing just a few whips at a time. And trying to work to finish, because I remember when I started, I was always monogamous. I always did one project at a time, and I was so happy doing that. So I kind of wish that I could go back to those times, being like super duper happy and thrilled working on one project at a time. So these are my fabrics. They're all in these scrapbook containers. I have them separated out by either, I have a neutral box, I have a box of 14 count Aida that's all colors. I have a box of linen and even weave. And I have a box of anything over 14 count that is colored fabric. So these are my neutrals. I'm not sure if I want to go neutral or if I want to try a color. And I'm also not sure if I want to try, because this is such a small project, if I want to try stitching on linen or even weave for this one. I feel like because I'm usually an Aida stitcher, small projects on linen and even weave are the way for me to go. And I have all this beautiful linen and even weave that was given to me by a friend that I want to use. So maybe I'll look at that first and see what's in here and maybe what colors would go. So this is my linen and even weave. So that's kind of my stitching journey as I've evolved as a stitcher. I'm sure like everybody does. I'm sure you don't stay the same stitcher you started out as. But so that's my stitching journey. I do have other hobbies. I like to read, and I've recently found a new genre called romantasy, which I don't think is a real genre. I think it's a booktube book talk genre, which is fantasy that is also romance. If you've never heard of it, I had never heard of it before I started watching some booktubers. So I love to read, and I just read this trilogy that's a romantasy that was so good. It's kind of YA, kind of like young adult, like early 20s. And it's called Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. It was so good. I really enjoyed it. If you like fairy tale romance fantasy, you may enjoy it. There's magic, there's villains. It's just a fun read. So I have this 32 count Murano. I kind of like this. It looks like the sky to me. It's by Chromatic Alchemy. I have this coloring cotton that's a little bit like more teal. It's called Oasis. It's a 28 count Jobelin. I also like the idea of doing 28 count. And this one's opalescent. This is called Sea Glass. This is 28 count. This is coloring cotton too. Might be fun to do an opalescent with this project. Might be fun to have it be sparkly. So let's see what the threads look like on here. So I do reading, and I read a lot of middle grade fiction because I am a children's librarian. So I read a lot of middle grade fiction and really enjoy it so that I can recommend things to the kids at the library. I like to crochet. I've been crocheting on and off since I was 9 years old, when I learned from it was my great-grandmother and my grandmother and my mom. They all taught me how to crochet. And I've been doing it ever since. I've done all kinds of things, tried different kinds of stitches, but I kind of prefer granny squares as one of my favorite things to do. I actually recently learned how to do granny stripe blankets and really enjoyed that. So I think I'm gonna go with one of these two. I'm thinking, even though it's 32 count, this light sky blue is better. So let's see if I have the right size here. So I do crochet. I like to color, although I haven't been doing as much coloring lately because I have a new thing that I've been trying to do, which is jigsaw puzzling. And I found a bunch of cat puzzles. I love cats. I have a cat named Puppy. And I found a bunch of cat puzzles when I was shopping at Dollar Tree. And I decided to picked them up even though I wasn't really a puzzler. I just became interested in them. So I need 8x8. I have plenty of fabric. So let's cut this. So I've actually started jigsaw puzzling and I really enjoy it. I'm not good at it. Like, I'm not an expert puzzler. So if it's too hard, I can't really do it. But so far I've done a 350 piece puzzle as my highest count. And it was really fun. I got a puzzle table that I can use for the puzzles because I had nowhere else to work on them. And it has legs and it can fold up. So I can store it easily. So I do jigsaw puzzling now. Okay, so this is what I think I'm gonna go with. This color is called Glacia, Glacia, and it's a light sky blue with a little bit of modeling. It's a 32 count Murano by Chromatic Alchemy. And these are the colors I'm gonna go with. And I think I'm gonna get started on this. So thank you so much for joining me. This was new for me. I've never chatted before. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down below what kind of hobbies you like to do, how you got started stitching, your favorite designers, all those good things. And I hope you have a good week. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye.